This is Halfway to the Sky, Part 4, starting on page 126. April 14th, Moreland Gap Shelter, Tennessee. Miles hiked today, 15. Total miles hiked on the Appalachian Trail, 395. Weather, hotter than blazes, hot, hot, hot. We climbed the steps to the shelter and took our packs off inside. Mom threw herself onto one of the bunks. I bent to take off my boots. Sweat, sweat, nothing but sweat. Even in the shade of the woods, even high on the mountaintops. The sun was hot and the air thick and muggy. We'd had some warm days, but this was by far the hottest yet, and I'd been in a full body sweat since 9 a.m. You wouldn't even think of the places you can sweat. In your ears, for one, not just trickling through your hair, but right down inside of your ears, and the tops of your knees, and right down the middle of your backside, if you know what I mean. All day. I peeled my socks off. My feet felt pickled. Mom heaved herself up. I'm going to go soak my head, she said. Ugh, me too, said Vivi. I'll be right along, I said. I'm going to change my shirt. I wanted to check out the register while they weren't around. I didn't know if Mom had ever realized there were messages for me. I wasn't going to tell her. Beagle was mine. Even with our quick trip home, we were gaining on him. Now we were only 2 days behind. I wondered if he knew how glad I was to read his messages. It was like he was walking with me. Every register, he was there. I flipped back a page or two, not sure enough. It's the same thing day after day. Can't wait until Damascus. Good night, Katadin, wherever you are. I flipped to the end. It's the same trail, but always different. I love it. Katadin. What's in Damascus? I asked Mom when she came back. Damascus? She repeated, looking puzzled. People are writing about it in the register, I said. They make it sound like something special. Oh, must be Trail Days. It's a big weekend festival. Damascus is a town in Virginia. We'll be there in a few days. I know that, I cut in. But Trail Days isn't until the end of May, I think. I'm surprised they're talking about it in the registers already. A lot of thru hikers go even if they have to hitch a ride to get there. We'll be off the trail by then. I hadn't been angry in days. Really, I hadn't. But something about the way she said it so casually, we'll be off the trail by then, made me seethe. Can we go? I asked. Mom said, I really don't see the point. You going, Vivi? Vivi shook her head. Not my scene. I'll be farther on. I'm not turning back for a party. I scowled. You never let me do anything I want, I said. Mother sounded stern. Such as hike right now? Don't be so dramatic. What would you do at Trail Days? You didn't let me go to soccer camp last year. Sometimes it sounded like all it would take was one little aggravation, and all the hurts from years ago would ooze right up and come out of my mouth. I sounded bratty even to myself, but I couldn't help it. That camp cost $500. Springer got to go to camp. Danny, she said, what's gotten into you? Springer's camp was free, you know that. I did know it. It was sponsored by the Muscular Dystrophy Association, and it was only for kids with MD. Springer went every year from the time he was diagnosed. Besides, she continued, angry herself now, would you really have taken that week away from him? Or from us? It seemed like the only time I really realized how much work it was taking care of Springer. After he was stuck in a wheelchair, was when he was at camp and Mom and Dad didn't have to do it anymore. Bathing him, helping him use the toilet, and getting him dressed and undressed, into his chair, out of it. Dad did most of the personal stuff, after Springer got old enough to be embarrassed about Mom seeing him naked. Every morning and night, it took Dad nearly an hour. Even little things like going to the grocery store were easier without Springer. When he was at camp, the rest of us went out for ice cream in the evenings and went to movies without having to sit in the back where the wheelchairs fit. We were more relaxed. Springer told me once that camp was the only place he felt normal. The 1 week every year when no one stared at him because he used a wheelchair, and the 1 week he didn't have to explain his feet or his weakness to anyone. He got to go swimming in a lake at camp and play baseball, and 1 year he even got to ride a horse. Riding a horse felt like walking, he said. He could remember when his legs moved the same way. So no, I wouldn't have taken that week away, not from any of us. After he died, that was how I imagined our lives were going to be, I said, like when Springer was at camp. He's not at camp, Mom said. I know that. I picked a scab at my leg. Why didn't you ever let him come to my soccer games? Mom looked wary. I let him, she said. No, you didn't. I was angry again. I always wanted him to come. I used to ask him, and he said you told him no. He said you wouldn't let him. Mom sighed. Should we just cook dinner and have a nice evening, or should we continue this conversation? I'm not hungry, I said. Okay, she smoothed out her face. Time to grow up a bit then, and quit blaming me for everything. Springer didn't want to go to your games, Catadin. He asked me not to make him, and I couldn't do it. Why would I have kept him away, unless he didn't want to? You did, I sniffed. He would have come. He was a 13-year-old boy in a wheelchair, Mom snapped. He hated being stared at, and he loved soccer. You might not be able to remember, but he played kinder soccer when he was 4 and 5 years old. He tried to play when he was 6, but he couldn't do it anymore. He couldn't run. When he was 8, he was in a wheelchair. I remembered that. It broke his heart, Mom said. It broke mine. He couldn't stand to watch you play, but I let you play anyway. I never told you not to play. I never even suggested that you shouldn't. You can't make him into a saint just because he's dead, she continued. He was a good kid and a tough kid. And he loved you, and he never would have come to your soccer games. He cussed too much, and he didn't always listen, and he was never any good at math. He talked back. He was not perfect. Stop it, I said. I don't want to talk. I want to eat dinner. You're the one who wants everything out in the open, Mom said. She looked plenty angry herself now that she'd worked up steam. Don't go blaming me for everything, and quit pretending your brother's watching out for you. Quit mooning over this beagle. I'm not mooning. I'm not pretending. I threw one of my hiking boots against the wall, and it fell to the floor in a cloud of dust. I threw the other one after it, and then I stomped off into the woods and sat by myself for a while. When I got back, Mom was still sitting in the shelter where I'd left her, and she hadn't started dinner. Vivi hadn't started cooking either. She was sitting near Mom, equally silent and still. I cooked, enough for us all. Later, in the middle of the night, I remembered something. I got out of my tent and poked my head into hers. I don't blame you for everything, I said aloud into the darkness. I don't blame you for Springer. April 19th, Damascus, Virginia. Miles hiked today, 12. Total miles hiked on the Appalachian Trail, 454. Weather, clear. The next morning, we were quiet and tense with each other. We're going to walk hard today, Mom said. We're going to move. We were hiking along the ridgeline and woods. Vivi was up ahead, out of sight. Mom and I were close together. It was an ordinary day. There were fewer of us now. Have you noticed? Mom said out of nowhere. Sure, I said, thinking she meant Springer. She sighed. Through hikers. There aren't so many now. Why not? We've walked over 400 miles. Lots of people don't make it this far. They've dropped out. I thought about that as we started to descend. Nobody could blame Trailhead, say, for stopping, but I didn't know about the rest. If Mom would give me the chance, I'd be glad to keep going. Think it's laziness? I asked. We caught up with Vivi, who had stopped by a spring and was filtering water. Mom splashed a tiny bit of water onto her hand and mopped her face with it. In the heat, we didn't waste water. Sources were few and far between, and some were marked on our maps as that had dried up. Laziness? She asked. I nodded. I don't think that's the right word, she said. Think of it this way, said Vivi. If you've made a mistake, is it smarter to keep doing the wrong thing or stop and do something different? Mom asked me, why did you want to hike the Appalachian Trail? Me? Yes, you. It's long, I said. Vivi snorted. Mom waited. I wanted to get away from everything, I said, but I wanted something to do. I wanted to be able to walk, and I wanted to be far away from people, but not too far so I could get food and everything. And I like mountains. Mom took a sip of Vivi's filtered water. That's a pretty good answer, she said after a long pause. You were wrong, of course, to run away. No matter what, you shouldn't have done that. I thought you'd never let me. I thought you wouldn't. Well, you were wrong there too, but at least your reasons for going were good. Even though a person who had a good reason might stop early. Maybe. The world's not black and white, she said. What were your reasons? I asked. She took another sip of water and looked away. I answered, I said, my voice rising. You should too. It's not fair. The first time I hiked the trail, Mom said, interrupting me, it was because I didn't know what else to do. Vivi nodded as though she understood. I didn't. My parents had died, Mom said, and I was still adjusting to that. I graduated from college, but I didn't know what I was supposed to do next. I read a magazine article about the Appalachian Trail, and I just hightailed it out here. It was early spring. I'd graduated early, winter term, and I was lonely and scared. That hike was a lot different from this one. I made friends at the shelters every night. I went into town with big groups of people. I spent 4 days at Damascus during trail days, having a big party, and I was falling in love with your father. Mom smiled and shook her head. Well, it was a lot more of a social thing for me then, that's all I'm saying. The trail was the same, but I was different. I needed to figure out who I was. Did you? I asked. Partially. Why are you hiking it now? To be with you. I must have made a face, because she put her hand and touched my arm. I figured you might have a good reason, she said softly. That was enough for me. That night, it got hotter, not cooler. We lay on top of our sleeping bags, alone in the shelter. I wish we'd made better time. I wanted to catch up with Beagle. On Wednesday, we reached Damascus. I was pretty eager to see it, and Vivi said she was too. We were going to take a 0 day, do laundry, get supplies. We hit the asphalt road and could walk 3 abreast. Mom said they call this the friendliest town on the trail. Is this where you were married? I asked. Why would you think that? I thought that's what you said. No, Mom said. That was Harper's Ferry, another important town. John Brown, cut in Vivi, started the Civil War. Really? I said. I thought it was just famous because of the trail. Aren't you supposed to be homeschooling? Vivi teased me. If Mom lets us keep going, I'll put an algebra book in my pack and do 50 problems every night, I promised. I looked at Mom. But you did get married while you were through hiking. She shot me a look. Of course. So you'd known Dad for... She sighed. A little over 2 months. Not long enough, but there you are. Was it in a church? Justice of the Peace, Mom said. The courthouse. That doesn't sound very romantic, I said. Oh, I don't know, she began to smile. I bought a new white t-shirt to wear for the ceremony. Actually, 3 white t-shirts. They came 3 to a pack. And some new socks and new underwear. And I carried a bouquet of wildflowers and juniper. She was a through hiker with us, picked from the side of the trail. And Juniper and Wildcat, he was the best man, tied empty tin cans to our backpacks and a sign that said just married. Tin cans? I wrinkled my nose. You know, like they hang on the backs of cars. When someone gets married, Danny, they hang tin cans off the back of the bumper of the car that the couple drives away in. It was the first I'd heard of it. What happened to Juniper and Wildcat? I asked. Juniper, I don't know. She started out in Colorado after the trail. She was going to run an outfitters or a hiking service or something, be the ski instructor in the wintertime. I heard from her a few years afterwards. Wildcat twisted his knee in the whites and left the trail. We didn't hear from him again. Like Trailhead, I said. Yep, bad hiker injury. But this was back before email, remember? You had to write people or call them. It was harder to keep in touch. I knew the whites meant the White Mountains in New Hampshire. You hike above the tree line there, where the trail is nothing but rocks. Are the whites hard? Mom shrugged. Sure, but they're also 1,100 miles away. We don't need to worry about them. Where should we stay tonight? What looks good? A nice bed and breakfast with a good dining room, suggested Vivi. A hostel, I said. Maybe a happy compromise, said Mom. Up ahead, I saw someone on the sidewalk, someone tall and thin and familiar. Beagle, I shouted, and ran. April 21st, Deep Gap, Virginia. Miles hiked today, 16. Total miles hiked on the Appalachian Trail, 481. Weather, hot, humid, horrible. I hate everything. I cannot believe I am still hiking. The worst part, Mom is making me. I want to quit, I said this morning. Not today, she answered. You said we could quit any time I wanted, so now I want to quit. I'd been up half the night crying into Springer's old shirt. I'm tired of being out here. Nothing changes. I want to go home. Mom looked me up and down with a cool expression on her face and said, no. What do you mean, no? We're hiking, Danny. A quick grocery run, and that's it. Get your boots on. So we hiked. Mom went ahead with Vivi. They waited for me every mile or so. I walked slowly, and when I was walking, I sat when I wanted to sit, and I cried a lot of the time. We still made 16 miles. I feel like some kind of horrible robot walking machine. I couldn't believe what had happened in Damascus. The first thing was, Beagle didn't recognize me. I rushed up to him and threw my arms around him, and he went all stiff and pushed me away, the way you would if a complete stranger tackled you in the street. Whoa, he said. Beagle, I said. Beagle, it's me. He looked at me hard. The two people with him looked at me too. Katadin, I said, my voice fading a little. You write me notes in the registers? I'm sorry, he said. He looked bewildered, embarrassed, and alarmed. I don't know what notes you mean. Good night, Katadin, wherever you are. He looked away again, his face turning red. The two guys he was with stared at me. Oh, right, he said at last. You're the kid from the first day. Sure, I remember, but I didn't think you were hiking anymore. Man, I would not have recognized you either if you hadn't said something. You must have gotten taller, or what'd you do, cut your hair? I hadn't done anything with my hair. Beagle looked different too, skinnier and dirtier, but I'd recognized him. You write me notes, I repeated. He shook his head. He was smiling, but the smile didn't seem directed at me, not in any personal way. Man, I just didn't recognize you, he said. I never really expected to see you again. I'm sorry. I could tell he expected me to say, that's okay, or no problem, or something like that. Come meet my mom again, I said, and Vivi, come have dinner with us. He looked at his watch. We're kind of in a hurry. Well, okay, see you at the shelters then. He shook his head. We're headed for the bus station, he said. We're out of here. For how long? I asked. I felt like my feet had grown into the sidewalk, like I couldn't have moved if I'd tried. For good, he said. He sighed. See, all along, my favorite part of the trail has been the town stops, and this week I realized I like being home better than I like hanging out in some strange trail town. This was an excellent idea, but I'm completely done. He grinned at the guys with him. I guess some people just aren't meant to be thru hikers. Oh, I couldn't think of anything to say. So, see you, or no, I guess I won't. Good luck then. Like, good luck with whatever. He turned and started walking, and his two friends walked with him. Who was that? One of them asked, his voice floating back to me. Your girlfriend? She looks pretty young. He laughed. Just some kid, Beagle answered. I bought her breakfast back at Springer. She looks scared to death. She calls herself Katadin. I can't remember her real name. Like, good luck with whatever. She calls herself Katadin. I can't remember her real name. I was not scared to death. I was never scared to death. Beagle looked back over his shoulder. He gave me a half smile that might have been an apology. His other buddy said, You wrote her notes? Beagle turned and kept walking. He left me alone. That night, Mom and Vivi and I ended up going to a pizza place for dinner. I could not stop crying, and I begged Mom to take me home. Vivi and Mom kept looking at each other and nodding and ignoring my tears. When the waitress asked, Hey, is she okay? Vivi said, No, but she's getting there. Now it was 2 days later, and I was still on the trail, where I didn't want to be, while Beagle was home, wherever his home was. Mom and Vivi had stopped at Deep Gap and set up camp, and since they got there first, I had to stop too. I wished I could get away from them. If I couldn't go home, I wanted to be alone. Mom went for water. Vivi came and sat next to me. I had taken off my pack and gotten Springer's shirt out and was just sitting still, holding it. Vivi gave me a sympathetic look. Go ahead and cry, she said. I've been crying for 2 days, I wailed. I wiped my eyes. I just can't believe Beagle left, I said. I can't believe he's gone. Vivi didn't say anything. She handed me her water bottle and I took a gulp and wiped my eyes. Why did he just leave? I said. Tears kept coming like they were never going to stop. I looked up and saw Mom coming back, coming toward us. Why would he do that? I said. Why did he have to go and die? I took a huge breath of air and a shuddering gulp, and my shoulders started to shake. Vivi put her arms around me, and Mom did too. Shiny tear tracks ran down Mom's cheeks, and tears dripped from her chin. I don't know, Mom said. I just can't understand it either. I miss him, I said. He was not supposed to die. I know, honey. I know, she said. Vivi patted me. I'm sorry, I said to her. Blessed Almighty, Vivi drawled. I've been sad some too. Eventually night fell and the stars came out and the air smelled sweet and strong. We made dinner and ate it, but we didn't clean it up. We just sat quietly, and sometimes Mom and I cried. He really was not supposed to die, Mom said softly. Vivi shifted her weight and turned her head, listening. He had a life expectancy of about 20 years, Mom continued. He was only 13. Duchenne kids always boys, it's genetic and linked that way. Started off seemingly normal, but their muscles get progressively weaker over time. They die when their hearts are too weak to pump blood, or their diaphragms too weak to let them breathe. Or both, I said. Mom nodded. Or both. Springer was in good shape, and then he got pneumonia, I said. He was in the hospital, but he was doing well. We all thought he was going to be fine. I went to see him after school, and I told him I'd bring in his homework so he wouldn't get too far behind. I told him I loved him, but I didn't stay the night, Mom whispered. I found her hand in the darkness and squeezed it hard. I wasn't with him when he died. The nurses checked him through the night. At one check, he was asleep, and at the next, he was dead, and no one was with him when it happened. And so here we are, she said, taking a little walk, Katadin and I. She got up and picked up the supper pot. I thought Vivi was going to think we were completely nuts, but all she said was, "There you are then." "There you have it," Mom replied. April 28th, Post Office, Bland, Virginia. Miles hiked today, 7. Total miles hiked on the Appalachian Trail, 585. Weather, rain. I woke up at Deep Gap, still sad enough to cry. I didn't think I'd felt that sad since the morning Mom sat on the edge of my bed and told me Springer was dead. I didn't think I'd ever felt that sad. I lay on my back and let tears roll through my hair. After a while, I got up and went out to find Mom. "Have you ever been this sad?" I asked her. "I don't know," she said. "Some days." She lit the stove and put the pan of water on to boil. "You can quit the trail now if you want to," she said. "You can quit today, or we can go on." "Until when?" I asked. "You know the answer to that. We've got another 10 days. I didn't say anything until we'd finished breakfast. I'd stopped crying by then. I said, "I say we go on." She smiled. "I figured you would." The mountains of Virginia were pretty, covered in full green leaves, between Deep Gap and Sugar Grove, a town where we stopped to buy groceries and do laundry. It was 38 miles, and we covered it in less than 2.5 days. I was still sad part of every day, but for the first time it seemed okay to be sad. I didn't know why it hadn't before. As usual, Mom never seemed especially sad or especially happy. She did talk more, to me and to other hikers we met along the way, and not just about Springer either. She started naming wildflowers for me and pointing out different varieties of trees and birds, and kinds of rocks and other things I hadn't known she knew. We sat around after dinner talking with the other hikers, besides Vivi, and it didn't feel strange. The day after Sugar Grove, a whole group of us accepted an invitation to stay in someone's cabin for the night. I wouldn't have felt safe doing that if Mom and I were alone, but with 5 other hikers, 3 of them being big, stinky guys, it was fine. The Sugar Grove to Bland, Virginia was 56 miles, 4 days. Mom said it would be our last resupply. "Don't make faces at me, Katadin," she said. "I can't help it. Our grand adventure is coming to an end." Bland was not the place to end it. Bland was bland. We stood outside the post office. "Can I call Dad?" "Of course," Mom said. "You can always call Dad." Lisa answered. "It's Danny," I said. "Can I talk to Dad?" "He's not here," she said. "How are you?" "Fine." "How's the hike?" "Fine." "When are you coming home?" "Mom says next week." Well, she paused. I could imagine her on the other end of the phone, rolling her eyes at how hard it was to pretend that she liked me. "We've got good news. You've got a..." She cut herself off mid-sentence. "A what?" I asked. "The baby's a boy," she said. "We just found out." "You've got a brother." That's what she had been going to say. I couldn't decide if I hated her more or less for not saying it. I had a brother. "We've picked out a name," Lisa said. "David. David Harper Brown." "David Harper Brown?" "That's right. Do you like it?" "It's okay." Lisa didn't say anything else for a moment. Neither did I. "I'll tell your dad you called. He'll be sorry he missed you." "Okay," I said. You're sure you're okay? Nothing's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I hung up the phone and stared at it. David Harper Brown. Harper, as in Harper's Ferry. I was not sure of it. Not a mountain, but the midpoint. Another child named after the trail. Do you like Lisa? I asked Mom later. We were doing laundry at the motel, and that would let us use their machines, even though we weren't going to stay there. Vivi had put her laundry in and left for the grocery, so I had a chance to talk to Mom alone. Lisa? No, not really. Not at all, actually. It's kind of an odd question, though, wouldn't you say? I told her about the baby's name. Mom nodded and then went back to the book she was reading, a dilapidated paperback someone had left in the laundry room. Don't you care? I asked. Don't judge me, Katadin, she said, sounding bored. But every time I'm around Lisa, I get the feeling she wishes I didn't exist. Well, Mom didn't say anything else for a few moments. I don't know. People are complicated. How do you feel about her? And how she feels about you? It isn't set in stone. It can change. Do you wish she didn't exist? I asked. Mom grinned. I won't say. If she didn't exist, would you still be married to Dad? Her grin faded. I don't think so. I can't imagine that we would be. Our divorce was not her fault. If Springer hadn't died. Mom interrupted. We talked about that once before. You're going to have to let it be. When you're older, I think you'll forgive us. Maybe not until then. If Springer had never been born, then what? She said. I shook my head. I wasn't sure how to end the sentence. Wasn't sure what I was trying to say. I can't imagine it, I said. No, Mom said, nor can I. May 1st, Pine Swamp Branch Shelter, Virginia. Miles hiked today, 20. Total miles hiked on the Appalachian Trail, 637. Weather, clear, cool evening. We were flying down the trail, just flying. 20 miles in a single day, nearly full packs, good weather. At lunch, I brought up leaving the trail, or rather, not leaving it. You could get another month's sabbatical, I said. Theoretically, maybe, Mom said. Practically, I think it would be more than my supervisor could take. But if you don't like your job anyhow, I'd still rather keep it until I found a new one. But, no buts, Danny. Vivi squeezed my hand sympathetically, and later, when we had stopped and were waiting for my mom, she said, I know you want to keep on, but you'll have time to come back when you're older. People always say that, I said. It's complete garbage. You know it is. You told me all about your cancer and how you were treasuring every moment. Well, right. I mean, yes, you're correct. But you're also not old enough to make your own decisions. In a few years you will be, and statistically speaking, you could still be alive at that time. Ha! We could see Mom now, making her way toward us. Would you keep going if you were in Mom's place? Vivi's face grew sad and thoughtful. Honey, my kids are grown up and healthy. I can't even imagine your Mom's place. She thought a moment longer and added, You started out without her. Would you keep going without her, if you could? I thought about my first night in Springer Mountain and all the nights since then. I shook my head. No. Might want to tell her, Vivi said as Mom came within hearing range. Tell her what? Mom asked. I shrugged. I'm glad you're here with me. I wouldn't have been able to do it alone. I wouldn't have wanted to either. Thank you, Mom said. At the end of the day, 20 miles from breakfast, we were all walking together in a row. Vivi led. She made a snorting sound about 30 yards from the shelter. Humph, she said, pointing. Teenagers. I'm practically a teenager, I said. Oh, honey, you don't count. They've probably got boom boxes and beer. Mom grinned. If they've got beer, I'm going to make them share it. They did not have beer, or boom boxes, or even CD players, that I could tell. Their names were Flip, Jake, and Andrew. They had external frame packs and well-worn boots, and they looked cool to me. I couldn't tell you how I looked to them. It was hard to say which smelled worse, me or my pack. Even though we'd done laundry in Bland only 3 days ago, and so my clothes were cleaner than usual, you wouldn't believe how much you sweat hiking in hot weather. Vivi said, Any bunks left for us? We could see their gear lined up along the front of the shelter. The one I later learned was named Jake said respectfully, No bunks, ma'am. There's just a floor in this shelter. Vivi grinned. Any floor left? Yes, ma'am. He moved their stuff to one side a little and let us climb in. There was plenty of room. Andrew, who was a little kid, only 8 or 9 years old, looked at us with wide eyes. He had black hair falling low over his forehead. "Are you through hikers?" he asked in a whisper. "Vivi is," I told him. "Mom and I are doing the first 700 miles. Some people have never heard of through hikers. Some think it's weird. Why would they want to do that? And some think it's very impressive and want to ask questions for half an hour. Flip, Jake, and Andrew were none of those. Flip said, "See, bud, told you we'd meet a through hiker." And Andrew said, "Wow." And Jake said, "We can show you where the water is. You went over the creek, but it's better if you go downstream a bit." In the end, it was Flip who helped me carry the water bags and the filter. He was tall and stringy looking. The muscles on his calves stood out like he hiked all the time. He said, "I didn't know anyone my age through hiked." "Section hiked," I corrected him. "I want to go all the way, but we can't." "Section hiked that far," he said. "Pretty long section." "I haven't seen anybody else our age, except weekend hikers," I said. "Nobody really serious. I'm sure I'm not the first, though." "I heard once about a 5-year-old boy," Flip said. "I figured it must be a rumor. Mom says someone told her his name once, so she thinks it might be for real." We reached the water, which was really running low, and I started to filter some. "You heard about the blind guy?" Flip said. "Everybody's heard about the blind guy," I said. He started his through hike with only his seeing eye dog as a guide. The dog was named Orient. The blind guy called himself the Orient Express, and they made it all the way. "Andrew's my brother," Flip told me. "Jake and I come up here a couple times a year. We kept telling him he should come with us sometime." Here's a list of questions Flip could have asked. "Do you have brothers and sisters?" Did I? Was Springer dead? Did David count? "How old are you?" He was 14, I would have guessed. I thought he looked older than me, but I still didn't know how I looked to him. "So where's your dad? How come your mom doesn't have a job?" Here's what he asked me instead. "Hiking that long, does it get lonely?" "Yes and no," I said. He picked up one of the water bags. "I always thought," he said, "that it would be a good kind of lonely." We made a small campfire, the first I'd been near in several weeks, and we roasted hot dogs over the fire. They were Flip, Jake, and Andrew's hot dogs, but after they saw us watching them, they offered to share. They had plenty anyhow. Andrew looked amazed when I ate 6. "Food is fuel," I told him. "I'm burning lots of fuel." "Want another?" he asked. "No, thank you." "Good," he said. Andrew fell asleep first, worn out from the hike, I guess, and then Mom and Vivi. Flip and Jake and I stayed around the fire, tossing small logs into it and watching them fall into embers. They told me about Pearisburg, West Virginia, where they lived, and about all the places they'd hiked nearby. I told them my favorite trail stories. The night got cold, the wind sweeping down the mountain, and we built the fire higher. I got my long underwear top out of my pack and put it on. "It was snowing in North Carolina," I said. "It was frightening." Flip looked over at me over the edge of the fire. "Man, you get to wake up and hike every day," he said. "That would be so cool. I wish I had your life." I don't think he really meant it, but I let it be all the same. In the morning, Mom, Vivi, and I woke early, like we always did. Early mornings are the best times to hike. We moved around quietly so as to not to wake the boys. I thought I saw Flip's eyes open as we walked away, but I couldn't be sure. May 3rd, near Nide Shelter, Virginia. Miles hiked today, 12. Total miles hiked on the Appalachian Trail, 667. Weather, cooler, clear, and sunny. Vivi left us that day. She had been in a strange mood all morning. She'd been walking fast and waiting when we caught up, and an uncharacteristically impatient look on her face. At lunch, she didn't want to rest, she wanted to keep going. Mom, on the other hand, wanted to nap. They stood facing each other and spoke like they were bad actresses in a play, reciting lines they didn't actually mean. "No, if you're tired, we should rest." "No, if you'd like to keep going, I'm fine." They were both very polite and fairly cross. In the end, we rested for half as long as Mom wanted, which meant they were both unhappy. I wanted to keep walking, to tell the truth, but Mom looked so worn out that I didn't say so. At 3:30 p.m., we reached Laurel Creek Shelter. We'd made astonishing time. "Early night tonight," Mom said, unclipping her pack. Vivi, our friend, looked unhappy. What's wrong? Mom asked her. I want to stay with you guys so much, she said, but at the same time, I want to keep hiking so much. I feel so strong now, and I could easily go another 5 miles tonight, she paused. Anyway, I can't decide whether I should stay with you all the way to the end. Maybe you need a little time on your own. Mom said, you can be with us, you're like our family, but you don't have to stay. You're going to need to find some new hiking partners anyhow. We won't be hurt if you start looking now. Yes, we will, I thought. I saw the concern on Mom and Vivi's faces. I saw how much they loved each other. All in that instant, I realized that my mother would not be talked into continuing, tonight or later on. In 3 days, we were leaving the trail. I held out my hand to Vivi. She took it and squeezed it. I'll walk with you a little farther on, I said. Okay, Vivi said. That would be good. We walked another half-mile. I left my pack at the shelter so I could go along easily. Good luck, I said when I was ready to turn back. You too, she said. She hugged me, quick and hard. I'll keep in touch. You keep in touch too. The next morning, Mom and I climbed Sinking Creek Mountain. Mom seemed to be sinking with every step. She simply could not hike fast, and she was crabby too. Sinking Creek Mountain is part of the Eastern Continental Divide, I told her. I'd read it in the guidebook. Water on one side of the mountain flows to the Mississippi, and on the other to the Atlantic Ocean. Thank you, Mrs. Park Ranger, Mom said. I understand the concept of a continental divide. I'm also tired, and I have to climb another mountain before I can have dinner. No, you don't. We can stop before then. We're going to get to Pickle Branch. We can stop right here. She looked around, then said petulantly, No, we can't. It's not a good place, and I want pizza. Mom, I said, have you got a bug in your eye? She looked at me in startled astonishment, and then we both burst out laughing. Got a bug in your eye was something from my childhood, something Mom used to say whenever Springer and I was whining, to make us laugh and get over it. Where did that come from anyway, I asked her. Did you make it up? Mom shook her head. You said it first. We were on a car trip. We were on vacation. This was before the MD, and you were worn out and started crying. You tried to get out of your car seat. When that didn't work, you yelled, I'm hot, I'm tired, I'm bored, and I've got a bug in my eye. Springer thought that was hilarious. He wouldn't let us forget it. The whole rest of the trip, he kept asking you. I remember, I said. Danny, have you got a bug in your eye? Mom grinned. Right. Anyway, I said, we can stop early for the night. She made a face. Don't you feel like we should keep going? Not if you're tired. I don't know if I'm tired. We'll have a long day tomorrow if we stop now. Let's stop, I said. It turned out to be an important afternoon. The air near our campsite was just perfect, warm in the sun with fresh piney smell. We had a clear running stream and the view of the mountains. I filtered water and set up our tents, then pulled some of our grubbier clothing out of our packs and washed it in the stream with the Dr. Bronner's soap that doesn't hurt the fishies. I figured we had enough time so that the clothes could dry in the sun. Mom made tea and sat and watched me. Feel better? I asked. I do, she smiled, but I miss Vivi, and I wish I had a newspaper or a book, something. Too much nature? No, but I'm used to newspapers. We'll be home in a few days, and we'll have to get you signed up for summer school. It'll work out, I said. Do you feel like you'll just fit right back into your old life? Mom asked. I was wringing out a t-shirt. I spread it onto a bush before I answered. I didn't fit into it when I left, I said. That was part of leaving. I think I fit into something now. I could call Tanner, maybe, if she wants to be friends again. I guess maybe I could be too. Or I can find some new friends, probably. I guess I haven't thought about it. What have you thought about? I looked at the trees and the stream. I can't remember. I don't know what I'll do, Mom said. This whole time we've been out here, I haven't been able to think of a single thing I'd like to do when I get home. I thought you wanted to get a pizza, I said. She laughed and threw a handful of grass at me. It's been a treat, getting to hike the trail a second time, and with you. I thought of the blisters and the mud and the bugs and the days of nothing but noodles for dinner. Maybe someday you'll get to do it again with your daughter, she said. Oh, that hurts so much. I'm never having children, I said. Don't you understand? Her face closed up. I don't think your childhood has been that horrible, she said. We always did our best. But I don't want to have a baby like Springer, I said. I don't think I could stand it. I wish I could, but I really can't. Water from the wet shirt dripped onto my feet. Mom stood still, staring at me. She looked shocked. "Oh, honey," she said. She sprang up and wrapped her arms around me, cradling me tight against her chest. "Oh, honey, I didn't know you were worried about that. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." The minute they said Duchenne's, I'd know what was going to happen, I sobbed. And even before then, I'd known what might happen. I'd be so scared. I'd know all along how much it was going to hurt. Mom wiped the tears off of my face with her shirt tail. She rocked me back and forth. I saw that she was crying too. "Katadin, baby, you're fine," she said. "Listen, you're fine. You don't carry the Duchenne gene. You're going to have healthy babies, don't you remember?" I felt like someone had just poured ice cold water down my back. Goosebumps rose up on my arms. Remember what? "We had you tested to see if you were a carrier." I understood how the genetics worked. Mom had a bad gene, so there was a 50-50 chance that every boy she had would have Duchenne's and die, and a 50-50 chance that every girl she had, including me, would have the bad gene and pass it on to her kids. Flip a coin. Tails, you lose. I didn't remember a test. I didn't know there was a test. "I guess you weren't old enough to understand," Mom said. "I thought you were. We told you all about it when we had it done. We had to. And we wanted you to be tested early because we thought you needed to know, growing up. We thought you did." "You never said." "We did say. I promise you." She wiped my face. "Oh, honey, we did. I didn't realize that you didn't understand. I guess we all put it out of our minds since we knew we didn't have to worry. I'm so sorry. You were worried still." Healthy babies? No more dying? A girl to hike with me someday, or even a boy. A whole future without any more Duchenne's. "Did Springer know?" I asked. "We told him when we told you," she said. "Then he knew," I said. "Springer never forgot anything." "I'm sorry," Mom said again. "It's okay," I said. My whole future would change now. Everything, I thought. Everything I knew. I looked up, expecting to see a hawk or an eagle or something soaring in the wind, like my hopes were soaring, like my happiness. The clear blue sky was empty. I listened to the creek splashing its way over the rocks. I felt the sun hot on my cheeks. Everything seemed new, and I was filled with joy. May 5th, Catawba, Virginia. Miles hiked today, 6. Total miles hiked on the Appalachian Trail, 689. Weather, cooler. Chance of rain. When you hike the Appalachian Trail, you get used to waking up and walking, every day. You get used to feeling sore all the time in different parts of your body. You get used to being sweaty and dirty. You get wet when it rains. You sweat when it doesn't. You eat everything you can every chance you get, and you realize your body is a wonderful, powerful machine. If you stay on the trail, you become amazed by what you can do. When I started out in Georgia, it was as if I couldn't even see. I never really paid attention to the trees or the woods or anything except the hard-packed path in front of me. Spring came and I barely noticed. By the time Mom and I left the trail at Catawba, Virginia, on the 5th of May, I felt like the beauty of the mountains and the woods was soaking into my bones. I noticed everything. I woke up somewhere along the trail. The last day, Mom said, "Maybe I'll take a test. They must have aptitude tests, don't you think, like in high school?" "I haven't been to high school yet, Mom." She ignored that. "There are tests that you take. They tell you what you'd be good at, like a scientist or, I don't know, a plumber or something." "What did yours say in high school?" "I can't remember. It wasn't very interesting." "Maybe the tests are better now," I said. "Yeah, well, that's what I'm hoping." She looked pretty cheerful about it. "What do you want?" Suddenly, I knew one thing. "I don't mind if we sell our house, but I don't want to move to a new town." Mom nodded. "Because you don't want to change schools?" she asked. "I don't know. I guess I don't, but that's not the reason." She waited for the reason. "I don't want to be away from Dad," I said. "I think he does want to be around me, but Lisa will make it harder. And if we moved, that would make it a lot harder, too. And I think I'd like to get to know David Harper as he grows up, and that'll be tough if I'm not close by." "Okay," Mom said. "We'll stay in town. I'd like to sell the house, though. I'm thinking an apartment would be less work." I'll do the work, I said. I'll help. I won't mind. You don't want an apartment? I want trees. Okay, she said, as long as you promise to help. Our last day was 6 miles, a stroll. We took it easy, stopped for lunch. What happens now? I asked. Can we take a bus home from Catawba? Mom shook her head. I doubt it. They've got a restaurant and a motel. I thought we'd call Nancy and see if she'll come get us tomorrow. I wouldn't take her more than 4 or 5 hours. Okay. I'm proud of you, the way you're handling this now. I know you'd like to keep going. We'd completed 1/3 of the Appalachian Trail. I knew so much more about hiking than when I'd started out. I knew for sure that I was going to make it to Katahdin, if only I had the chance. I guessed I knew one more answer to why people quit the trail, because they didn't have a choice. I've been thinking, Mom went on, whatever job I end up with, they'll have to give me some kind of vacation time. So we could take a week or 2 every year and come back to the trail. We keep heading north. It still counts as a through hike, if you finish the whole thing in sections. 100 miles a week if we were fast. Maybe 10 years to finish, depending on how many weeks Mom could take. I'd like that, I said. We came to the state highway and I walked along it to west to Catawba. I saw the store first, and then the flag flying by the post office. I saw a familiar car parked in front of the store. Then I saw my father. Dad? I called. Dad? He walked towards us. Need a lift home? How did you know? How did you know where we were? Lisa told me you were in Bland, he said. I just figured you'd be here about now. Mom laughed. How many days have you been waiting for us? Dad checked his watch. A few hours, I swear. No more. He gave me a kiss as I got in the car. I know a great restaurant on the way home. I'll treat you both to dinner. Where's Lisa? I asked. Home. Maybe you could stop by and see her tomorrow. Maybe, I said. September 26th, 114 Clear Mountain Road, Bristol, Tennessee. Miles hiked today, 0. Total miles hiked on the Appalachian Trail, 695 and holding. Weather, sunny and warm. I was named after Katahdin, a mountain in Maine. My brother Springer was named for a mountain in Georgia. The Appalachian Trail spread between us, over 2,000 miles long. I think that when I set out to through hike, I hoped I might find Springer at the end. That's how much I missed him, how much I still miss him sometimes. For now, though, I am one of the 9 out of 10, one of the ones that quit. When Mom and I got home after our time on the trail, we sold our house and moved to a cabin on the ridgeline of a knob. It is not perfect. The rooms are small, the bathtub leaks, the mice are invading the kitchen. But it is perfect for us. Trees surround us and we feel close to the sky. The road is so narrow and winding that the school bus can't get up and down. So it picks me up and drops me off at an intersection near the bottom. This means I get to climb up and down a very big, small mountain every day. I spent the summer taking classes and studying. In the end, I was allowed to stay with my class. On the last Saturday of July, Mom and I drove to Natahala and went whitewater rafting. I won't say it wasn't fun. Then, on August 1st, 11 months to the day after my brother Springer died, my brother David Harper was born. When I got to the hospital, his little bassinet had been wheeled into my stepmother's room. I hesitated just inside the door. Dad looked up, smiling. Lisa held David Harper, her arms curving around him like she meant to shield him forever from all the dangers in the world. But when I sat down on the edge of a chair by her bed, she set him in my arms. He was so small and beautiful, he took my breath away. Lisa cleared her throat. When he's a little older, she said, would you consider babysitting once in a while? Well, I said, okay. I touched his tiny finger, soft as a kitten's paw. Lisa said, I know we could depend on you. I still don't like her, don't get me wrong, but I don't hate her quite so much. The first anniversary of Springer's death came and went. I remembered how I'd planned to spend it at the top of Mount Katahdin. I felt like I'd failed him, even though I knew I'd done the best that I could. A letter came the 4th week of September. It was a bright, clear day of the sort that always reminded me of our best days on the trail. When I climbed up the road after school, I took the mail out of our mailbox and thumbed through it as I walked toward the house. Susan in Katahdin, an envelope said. No last names. It had been forwarded from our old house. I didn't recognize the handwriting, but but still a thrill traveled slowly up my spine. I stopped and carefully slit the envelope open. I shook it, and a photograph fell into my hand. It was Vivi. She was standing next to the sign that marked the northern end of the Appalachian Trail. She looked thin and tired and radiantly happy. A wave of pride and longing swept over me. I closed my eyes, and for a moment I could feel myself standing where she stood. Rocks under my feet, cold wind hard against me. Oh, Vivi, I thought. Oh, Springer. There was a letter in the envelope, too. I unfolded it and began to read it, and I walked quickly toward the house. I couldn't wait to tell my mother. Vivi had made it to Katahdin, and someday I would too. The end.